Coming into Auburn, he was compared to Cam Newton. Coming out of high school, he was a top 50 player and the #1 athlete in his class. He was expected to be the future of the Auburn program and one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him in his time as a Tiger, so he decided to transfer to Kentucky. He went to a school that has lacked quarterback success over the last few years, and many thought it'd be a no-brainer that he would start right away. Well, it never really happened, and when he saw the field, he struggled tremendously. Going into 2021 though, he was expected to finally be the starter. He really didn't have a whole lot of competition, and his natural talent would have been able to beat out the other guy on the roster. Well, we were all wrong. Joey Gatewood is the player I am talking about in today's video, and he recently entered the transfer portal for the second time, and many are wondering what is next for him. He was the #1 athlete in his class, and was expected to be a huge quarterback name. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's ever going to play Power 5 football again, and the question needs to be asked, is Joey Gatewood's superstar career almost over? Well, in today's video, we're going to go through his entire story, his college career so far, and what has gone wrong for him. But right before we get into that, please be sure to subscribe, as we are now on the road to 100K, and nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed, so I would really appreciate it if you hit that button. Now let's get started and talk about what happened to Joey Gatewood. In order to understand what happened to Joey Gatewood, we need to go all the way back in time and see how he became a big-time player to begin with. He grew up in the state of Florida, and unfortunately he would also grow up without a father figure. Apparently his dad left when he was little and was, quote, just never around, and he never knew him. Things didn't get much easier for Gatewood though, as he was a small chubby kid going into middle school, and apparently he was bullied and harassed by a lot of his peers. Instead of crying and feeling sorry for himself, he decided to channel all that anger and negativity, and he got in the weight room and really put all of his effort into football. By the time he got to Bartram Trail High School in Jacksonville, Florida, he was a star football player. This is the same high school that former Clemson quarterback Kyle Parker went to, and former Tennessee and Pittsburgh quarterback Nathan Peterman went to. Apparently Peterman was even friends with Gatewood, but Joey was not the feature guy. He actually split time with another quarterback by the name of Riley Smith. Smith was a fringe Power 5 quarterback prospect as well, and he'd actually eventually take his talents to Boise State, but he has since moved to tight end. He split time in high school with him just like Kyle Trask and De'Aaron King did, but Gatewood was seen as a big-time prospect before he ever really established himself in high school. He started earning offers as a freshman, and many believed he was going to be a Florida State Seminole. After attending a Jimbo Fisher Florida State camp, Gatewood had this to say, quote, "I was going to commit today. That's what I had planned. I was going to commit at the camp, but I decided I would visit Auburn, so I didn't commit." When he was at that camp, apparently everyone on Twitter was talking about how Gatewood was going to be a Seminole, and he didn't want it to be leaked, but he ended up waiting for that Auburn visit, and that would change everything. When he visited Auburn's campus, he absolutely loved it. Once he visited Auburn, it was going to be a neck-and-neck race between Florida State, and he had this to say, quote, "They treated me as good as they do here. They treated me as well as anyone ever has. I get along good with everyone here, and they're all great. It's going to be close, that's all I can say. It's going to be really, really close." In his first 3 years of high school, he threw for 1,791 yards and 12 touchdowns, while completing nearly 60% of his passes. Not only did he have an arm, he also ran for over 2,000 yards and 23 touchdowns as well, and even caught 27 passes for 336 yards. In his senior year, he ended up throwing for 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns, and also rushed for over 1,000 yards and 16 scores. But we gotta go back a few years, because he actually made his college decision after his sophomore year of high school. He committed to Auburn over Florida State, and no matter what was thrown at him, he decided to stay a Tiger. He got offers from schools all over the country, including Alabama, and Auburn even got a new offensive coordinator. He never wavered in his two-quarterback system either, as many players like to flee when things get tough, but he decided to stick along with his teammate, and he thought that competition would prepare him for college, and he does not regret that. Eventually, signing day would come around, and after being committed for over 18 months, he signed the papers to be an Auburn Tiger. According to 24/7 Sports, he was a high 4-star recruit, the #1 athlete, and the 49th best player in the class of 2018. Gatewood had all the hype in the world, he had overcome a tough story, and he had unlimited potential. So how did things go at Auburn? Going into his Auburn football career, some actually compared him to Cam Newton. He was such a physical freak and was such a big guy that many said he looked like Cam Newton when he arrived at Auburn at the turn of the decade. The Tigers were led by Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, so Gatewood was always going to sit on the bench. Believe it or not, his backup at the time was actually Malik Willis, who, in case you don't know, is at Liberty is one of the best quarterbacks in the country and could be the #1 overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. But yeah, obviously Willis would transfer, but Gatewood really wouldn't get a chance to see the field in 2018. Auburn would open up the year with a win over number 6 Washington, but after a loss to number 12 LSU, their playoff hopes were looking bleak. It finally ended when they lost to Mississippi State and Tennessee back-to-back, and their best win of the regular season came against number 20 Texas A&M. They lost to both Georgia and Alabama, as they actually finished the regular season at 7-5, which was bad for Auburn standards. Luckily, they get matched up with the Purdue Boilermakers out of the Big Ten, as they would go to Nashville for the Music City Bowl. In one of the most lopsided games in bowl history, Auburn absolutely killed Purdue, and Gatewood would get his first opportunity to see the field. He went 0 of 1 for 0 yards, while also rushing the ball 3 times for 28 yards. Not exactly a huge freshman year, but at least he got on the field. Going into 2019, there'd be a 3-man quarterback battle between Malik Willis, incoming freshman Bo Nix, and Joey Gatewood. Ultimately, true freshman Bo Nix would win the job, but Gatewood would still get an opportunity to play. Auburn was under head coach Gus Malzahn, and they were picked to finish 4th in the SEC West. Gatewood would play in their first game against Oregon, as he'd run the ball 1 time for 1 yard and a touchdown. His 5th ever snap went for a touchdown, and it was a good start to this year. From there, he'd run the ball 6 times for 21 yards against Tulane, before he'd have his best game of his career against Kent State. In a blowout win, he'd run the ball 12 times for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, he was making his impact on the ground, but he just did not have the arm to start, and Bo Nix was having a good year. He would appear in their wins over number 17 Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Arkansas, but outside of those 3 games, he'd only step foot against number 2 LSU, and then he was done for the rest of the 2019 season. On the year, he completed 5 passes for a total of 54 yards, and ran for a total of 148 yards and 3 touchdowns. It had been a disappointing first 2 years for him, and it looked like Bo Nix was going to be the starting quarterback from here on out. He decided to enter his name into the transfer portal, and now he would need to find a new school. So going into the 2020 season, the Kentucky Wildcats would have a quarterback battle between Joey Gatewood and Terry Wilson. Wilson had been there for a couple of years and had led them to the promised land back in 2018, but after he got injured in 2019, he was a little bit of a shell of his former self, so there was a little bit of a battle. Unfortunately for Gatewood, Wilson ended up getting the nod, as he did have more experience and trust from the coaching staff, but Gatewood would still appear in multiple games. He would first appear on October 10th against Mississippi State, but he did not really record any stats. He came in the second half against Missouri and played a little bit against Tennessee, but he did not make his first career start until their home matchup with Georgia. In that game, he completed 15 of 25 passes for 91 yards, and also ran for 23 yards on the ground. Not exactly the best start in the world, as he really didn't do anything, but it was against the Georgia defense, and that's a tough game for any player to make his first start against. He didn't complete a pass the rest of the year, and his 2020 campaign was not very good. He passed for a total of 109 yards and ran for 62 yards, and had no touchdowns and 1 interception. This really wasn't that great, but going into 2021, there was a lot of buzz that he would finally be the starter after Terry Wilson would transfer to New Mexico, and it looked like it was his job to lose. Well, instead, they brought in Penn State quarterback Will Levis, and those two would battle it out. For a while, it looked like Gatewood would have the starting job, but as the summer progressed, we heard more and more rumors that Will Levis was going to be the guy, and just a couple of days ago, Mark Stoops announced that Will Levis would be their Week 1 starting quarterback. From there were rumors that Gatewood would enter the portal, and it would later become official. Literally, as I was recording this video, it has just been announced that Gatewood is going to UCF. While he is not 100% enrolled, the plan is for him to play for former head coach Gus Malzahn with the Knights, and this could be a really good fit for him. I guess I was right that his Power 5 days are over, but UCF is a pretty dang good Group of 5 school, and he's going to have an opportunity to do pretty well there. Dylan Gabriel is currently a junior, and he has NFL aspirations, so maybe Gatewood can come in and start next year. It's going to depend on what happens, but as of right now, all Joey can do is work and try to prove to the coaching staff that he deserves to start. In terms of what has gone wrong, some did say he was more of an athlete coming out of high school than an actual quarterback, and that might actually be true. He has shown flash running the ball, but as a quarterback, he hasn't played that great so far, and I think he just needs the right coaching staff. To be fair, he hasn't got a ton of opportunity, and his one and only start would come against Georgia, but he did get beat up by a freshman at Auburn. Overall, I'm excited for Gatewood's new opportunity at UCF. I hope he saves his career and lives up to the hype, and he'll be closer to home to do it. What do you guys think, though? If you're a Kentucky, Auburn, or UCF fan, what do you think of Joey Gatewood? Who's another player I should do next? How's Kentucky going to do it Will Levis as a starter? And give me another suggestion for a future video. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section. Hit that like button if you want to support today's video. Subscribe if you're new here, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.